So let's begin our random variable section of intuitive probability course with understanding the difference between an experiment and a random experiment. First, let's see the difference, then we will move ahead with a random variable and discrete random variable, continuous random variable, cumulative distribution, CDF, and cumulative density function and probability density function, and everything we'll see one by one, step by step. For now, let's begin with a random experiment. But before I make you understand about a random experiment, I would like you to know about experiment first. So first we'll see what is an experiment. An experiment is a scientific method that involves the systematic and controlled manipulation of one or more independent variables to observe their effect on a dependent variable. So in other words, an experiment is a process or a procedure of testing a hypothesis by collecting data under controlled conditions. So an experiment is a process that we do it and results in an outcome are by and large known. So let's see some of the examples for experiment. So we're beginning with experiment. So example 1, we'll take the first example from physics. That would be much easier for you to understand. So physics, a physics experiment investigates the effect of temperature, on the expansion of a metal rod. This is one experiment. So a metal rod is heated to different temperatures and its length is measured using a ruler or other measuring devices. That is an experiment in physics. Next, let's take an experiment from biology. So a biology experiment that investigates the effect of a new drug on the growth of cancer cells. So cancer cells are cultured in a lab and treated with the new drug, and the rate of cell growth is measured and compared to a control group and that did not receive the drug. So in this, the rate of cell growth is measured and compared to a control group that did not receive the drug. Let's see a few more examples. This time is from psychology. That would be easier for many of you to understand. Psychology experiment that investigates the effect of sleep deprivation on memory. So participants are randomly assigned to two groups. One group stays awake all night while the other group gets a full night's sleep. So both groups are then given a memory test the next day. And another example, let's check it from sociology. Sociology. Okay. Sociology. Uh, this experiment, a sociology experiment that investigates the effect of social media on self esteem. So participants are randomly assigned to two groups. One group uses social media for a set period of time each day, while the other group avoids social media altogether. So both groups then complete a self-esteem questionnaire. So that's what, and these are all called as experiments. So now, what is a random experiment? A random experiment. Random experiment, on the other hand, is a type of experiment in which the outcome is determined by chance or probability. The outcome is determined by chance or probability. So, examples of random experiment include tossing a coin, rolling a dice, or drawing a card from deck of cards. So, a random experiment, an activity that produces a result or an outcome called an experiment. So it's an element of uncertainty as to which one of these occurs when we perform an activity or experiments. Usually, we may get a different number of outcomes from an experiment. However, when an experiment satisfies the following two conditions, it's called a random experiment. The first condition is it has a more than one possible experiment outcome. It has more than one possible outcome. Second one, it's not possible to predict the outcome in advance. It's not possible to predict the outcome in advance, and that's what we call it as a random experiment. So the main difference between an experiment and a random experiment is that in an experiment, the researcher manipulates the independent variables to observe their effect on the dependent variable. While in a random experiment, the outcome is determined by chance or probability. So there is a human intervention. In an experiment, I'm repeating this, or no, I'll put it in the writing. That would be easy for you to. Um, so the main difference between experiment and random experiment is, in an experiment the researcher manipulates the independent variables to observe their effect on the dependent variable. So while in experiment random experiment, the outcome is determined by chance or probability. That's it. So that is the main difference between an experiment and a random experiment. A random experiment. So let's take a few examples for a random experiment. Tossing a coin three times. Tossing a coin three times. When you toss a coin three times, 2 power 3, that's 2 cube. So number of possible outcomes is equals to 8. 2 cube, it's number of possible outcomes is equals to 8. It's number of permutations. If you have watched my previous section from intuitive probability for you course, in that section I have clearly said permutation without replacement, permutations with re- permutations with repetition. So in that we have discussed the permutation with the repetition. The formula is n power r, here 2 power 3. And this is the permutation with repetition, and the sample space is equals to s h h h h t h t h h t h h t t h t h t h t t t t t t. Okay, that's what the sample space for this when you toss a coin 3 times. Then we have three coins are tossed simultaneously. Obviously, same thing happens. Number of possible outcomes is equals to 8. Same thing. Then another example, rolling a pair of dice simultaneously. Pair of dice. So obviously it's 6 times 6. It's equal to 36. That's what the total number of possible outcomes. We have done huge amount of examples in probability theory section of intuitive probability for you course. So these are the examples for random experiment. Anyway, we have seen the experiments, examples for the experiments also. So in summary, all random experiments are experiments, but not all experiments are random experiments. I'm repeating again to avoid the confusion. In summary, all random experiments are experiments, but not all experiments are random experiments. So random experiments are a subset of experiments that involve a chance or probability in determining the outcome. So random experiments are a subset of experiments that involve chance or probability in determining the outcome.